Today I'm talking about 3 mistakes you may be making with your distracted child and how to fix them. Hi, I'm Abigail and I'm a parent coach of moms with distracted kids. And I'm on a mission to help change our mindsets, as many of us, parents and teachers, see these distracted kids as not lazy or not having a bad attitude or unmotivated. But it's just that their brains work in a different way, and there's a lot of untapped potential in these kids if we find a way to motivate them, if we find a way to uncover their gifts. So it's a horrendous waste of potential if we just let these kids go on thinking that they are lazy, they're unmotivated, because they will prove us right. Eventually, many of them do not build those skills, or they go through life thinking like, oh, my parents are scolding me all the time, my teachers always pass me over, they don't give me chances to be a leader at this and that because they don't think I have potential and all that. And after many rounds of that, you can imagine every single day they go through life thinking that, and eventually they'll come to realize, they'll come to believe it for themselves, and that's such a horrible waste. So yes, let's stop this cycle and try to uncover that potential that we are seeing. So mistake number 1 is that we are yelling at a distracted child. Not that we should be yelling at any child, neurotypical or neurodiverse, but for the distracted child, they feel a lot more when we yell at them, or when we say harsh words, or when we behave in a very passive-aggressive manner towards them. And I'll explain to you in a little while why. Have you noticed that when you yell at your child actually doesn't improve? He actually gets worse, right? And yet we do it again and again and again. I do get caught up in this whole vicious cycle. I yell and then I say I'm sorry. I realize I shouldn't yell, and then I go on yelling again the next day. So we are often caught in this vicious cycle that we don't want to be caught in, which is really strange, right? We should be able to stop ourselves because we already know that yelling is wrong, but yet we still do it all the time. And the fact is that our child doesn't get better. It's not like we yell, we scold him, and then the next day he learns or he improves. It doesn't happen that way, but yet we go on doing the same thing again and again, expecting a different result. That's like what people say, that's insanity, right? So when we yell at our kids, there are 4 modes that they go into: fight, flight, freeze, or fit. 4 Fs. When you yell at them, most of these kids, they will fight you, which means that they shout at you, they scream, they maybe hit you because they are in fighting mode. Or the second mode they go into is flight mode. They run away and hide. The third one is to shut down, freeze. So they shut down, they get lost in their own world. They're not even listening to you, and you can scold them, but they're just in their own world. They've shut you out, right? And the last one is fit, lying. FI, which is what we talked about last week, right? How to deal when your child is lying. So they go into these 4 modes because their brains have shut down, their executive functioning skills are underdeveloped, so they cannot deal with all these yelling and bad emotion that's being directed at them, this negative kind of energy, right? So their brains are receiving all these signals and telling them that you're in danger, and that's why they're doing one of these 4 things. And not saying that our kids are ADHD, but a lot of ADHD adults report, because they're adults, they're able to now look back at own experiences and articulate. Then a big proportion of them suffer from something called RSD. It's so pervasive among this group of people, the ADHD community, that the psychologists even have a name for this thing called RSD. RSD is rejection sensitivity dysphoria. RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So if we have a distracted child, chances are he or she lies somewhere along the spectrum of ADHD, inattentiveness, right? Again, not saying that your child is ADHD. ADHD kids are very, very serious to the extreme, and you need a psychiatrist, a pretty thorough diagnosis for your child to be in that extreme. But what happens for the rest of our kids who are lying along the spectrum but not serious enough to get diagnosed? I think they will also suffer some symptoms or some effects of this RSD as well. And maybe you see that in your own child. Like I see that in my own child. He's extremely sensitive to rejection, and he takes it upon himself like, oh, if somebody doesn't like me or somebody's scolding me in this, that it must mean I'm no good, I'm a failure. I guess they feel a really, really deep sense of rejection, and it's a severe emotional pain because of a failure, and they feel rejected. And you can imagine the number of events that go through the day that they feel rejected or scolded or looked over by teachers and very heartbreakingly by us parents as well. So I'm telling you all these today is to help us see that our kids are going through a lot too, and maybe that will evoke some empathy from us, and that did the trick for me. At first, I kept thinking my son is lazy, my son is unmotivated, he is smart, but he's not putting his brain to good use, those kinds of thoughts, whether or not they are articulated to him or I think in my head. After I made this shift, and as I read more, as I went through the checklist, oh my goodness, he ticks a lot of the ADHD boxes, then I started realizing that, my goodness, maybe my son has a problem. He isn't the problem. He has a problem. And so that kind of helped me lessen the anger a lot more. It doesn't mean that I don't get angry. I still do. I still yell a lot. But it definitely my anger has toned down a bit more, and it has enabled my maternal instincts and love towards him to emerge more freely. Yeah, just having that shift in mindset. So I hope that helps you to kind of see your child as having a problem instead of making life difficult for you. And maybe that will help you kind of tone down the anger a bit more. Okay? And maybe you're saying that I can't help it. It is super triggering when your son or daughter shout or scream or roll on the floor in public or goes off the whole afternoon, wastes a lot of time, and she's like distracted, going from the kitchen to the toilet to the living room, and she's not doing anything for like 2 hours. That's super triggering to you, right? And I would like to gently suggest after this session, go back and look at what is your child doing that's triggering you, and therein lies your answer. Which behaviors your child is triggering you is the answer to how you can solve the anger problem in you. I'll let that sink in a bit. Right? I'll give you a few examples, okay? So the reason is that we are triggered by certain behaviors and we are not triggered by other behaviors, right? And why is that? Why some things that your child does makes you so angry? Maybe it's because of certain things in your childhood or your own experiences or your own upbringing or your own perception. Maybe it's not even like said to you, but it's your perception of what is right and wrong. And it's just your values, right, that influence what you see of these behaviors. So for example, like I can take my son rolling on the floor. That doesn't trigger me. It's fine. He can roll all he wants, right? But the moment he starts spitting on the floor, wow, I get really, really riled up. And now that I see it, I know where that comes from. It's because I have my own insecurities about how my house looks, and I'm super ashamed of how clean or how tidy my house is. And when I do clean my house, it's a lot of effort on my part. So when somebody else comes in and shits on the floor that I just clean or spits on the floor that I just clean, it drives me mad. It just sends me into like a crazy mode. So that's something I realized then, and I'm trying to tone it down and recognize it. Just being aware of your triggers will help you deal with it in the moment. Okay, so yeah, spitting on the floor cannot. Screaming is okay, not too much, right? But some screaming is fine with me. But the moment he starts hitting his siblings, his younger sister especially, the moment he starts disturbing her or provoking her to make her cry, I get really, really irritated or annoyed as well. Because again, it's from my own childhood experience that my parents often said like, oh, you're the older sister, you must take care of your younger sister. No offense to my younger sister, I love her. but it was this hang up I have as a child that I always have to take care of her, and if she cries, it's always my fault, I have to give in to her. I find myself in that sacrificing kind of big sister role. And so when I see my middle child bullying my younger child, I really cannot take it. So I will really come down on him quite hard. So again, back to you to help you. Just look at what your child is doing and what you can't stand, and just being aware of the reasons why is it triggering you so much will help you be able to be aware of it. Okay? And again, coming back to why the kids are pushing your buttons. And our kids are really good at it, right? They know exactly which buttons to press to piss you off. And I think it goes deeper than that. There's a lot of psychology going behind this, and because hurt people hurt people. I'll say that again. Hurt people hurt people. Hurt people will want to find some way to lash out at others in a way to protect themselves, in a way to make them feel better. So my child was screaming away because I made him do Chinese. I think it was one of those learning things here kind of sessions, and then he was screaming away, and he was doing stuff like spitting and all that. And this was the first time I realized that I could not react. I mean, I was a bit triggered because it's spitting on the floor, but it's okay. I'm like telling myself, okay, keep calm, I can clean up with a wet wipe, no problem, it's fine. But I was able to look beyond that behavior and see that my son was actually trying to trigger me so that I will lose control and we will turn the whole attention away from Tingxie to the spitting behavior, which is not the point, right? And he was just trying to divert the attention away from the real issue, which was perhaps the fact that he needed to do Tingxie. And why he felt so bad about it was because he just felt inadequate or inferior or stupid because he can't get the words, he can't remember the words. And so I realized that a lot of these fight behaviors was really trying to divert attention away from the real issue and masking the pain. And so knowing that, I was able for that session to kind of just detach myself, and I just told him in a calm voice like, okay, you're spitting on the floor, so you're just trying to describe the behaviors like sports casting, right? Okay, I see you spitting on the floor, that's okay, we can clean up later. I'm gonna sit here and drink my tea, I'll wait for you to calm down, and then we can learn the things here together later. Of course, he screamed, he yelled, but then he soon calmed down because I wasn't adding fuel to the fire. I wasn't escalating the situation together with him by yelling at him. And so we were both able to remain calm. He was able to calm down faster because I was calm. And so eventually, after he calmed down, we were able to get back to the real work, the real issue that was the problem. So now how to fix mistake number one, how to fix the yelling. As I mentioned, the moment I realized my child had a problem, that kind of helped me to be more empathetic. So that's something you can try. You can try telling yourself like, my child is not trying to make my life difficult, he or she has a problem. Second thing is to relook at my expectation. For example, again, maybe coming back to the learn spelling example, right? Maybe my oldest daughter needed just one day to learn her spelling. And I realized I was placing the expectation on my child as well. And I expected him to do the same as the sister, to learn the spelling in just one day. And when he can't do it and then he melts down and all that, it's very stressful for everybody, right? So knowing that he just needs more time, then I just needed to plan for more time. So every day I would get him to learn two new words. And so it's less overwhelming for him. He's able to complete the task quite fast. It gives him confidence that he's able to learn well with just 2 words. Does this mean that we are lowering our expectations? No, not at all. Okay, it just means that we are holding the same expectation for the child. The child still has to learn 10 words by the end of the week, but we are giving him more time to slowly get to that level. Yeah, so I'm not asking you to lower your expectations, and we shouldn't, and I'll tell you why later. But we definitely can give our children more time, we can give more support, we can give more help. That's what I'm saying. So that was mistake number 1. Don't yell at your child. Okay, mistake number 2 is not building the connection during peace times. Peace times when you are not fighting with your child. And I realized that this was really pivotal in my relationship with my child, and it was the game changer. So I spoke a lot about like going on one-to-one dates, building the connection. You can look at my other 2 IG lives last week. But I think the main thing I want to stress here is that you can start practicing the 5 love languages. What are the 5 love languages? Words of affirmation, very, very important. Words of affirmation. Remember, our kids suffer from RSD, right? Rejection. And they don't hear a lot of praises. They don't hear many affirming things from teachers in their school. And then, of course, they don't hear many affirming things coming from you as well, right? The parent, because we're sometimes so angry with our child. So making an effort to really praise him, and of course the praise has to be true, has to be authentic, so that we are calling out those positive behaviors that we see. That will help build his confidence, that will help build his goodwill, or whatever you call it, towards you. And these kids, right? If they like you, they will go to the ends of the world for you. Like I used to teach a bunch of normal acad students, and they're very relational. I suspect a lot of them have like undiagnosed ADHD now, looking back. But anyway, as a class, they were very emotional, and if they don't like you, they will not attend your class. If they like you, they will attend your class, they will do your homework, they will speak up for you, they will tell other kids to shut up and listen. Hey, teacher's talking, listen. So it's very cute. It's very cute. And our kids I often think of my NANT students, some of them are like mummies now, so maybe they're listening on. And I think a lot of our kids are like that too. If they have a good relationship with you, whatever you tell them to do, they're like, okay, you know, I don't like it, but I'll still do it for you. I'll give you face, you know, that kind of thing. So our relationship with them goes a long way, right? So words of affirmation, physical touch. I don't know if it's a boy thing, but he really needs a lot of physical touch and hugs. Or it could be a sensory thing as well. It could be a gender thing, it could be a sensory issue thing, but I find that the physical touch works well for my child. And I often say that my son is the sticky boyfriend I never wanted, but he's just very sticky to me since he was born. I always had to be carrying him and all that. He was always like seeking me out. So yeah, he's that kind of boy, you know. And I find that he really likes hugs. He likes me to hold his shoulder. I hold his hand when we walk to school together. And he likes bear hugs. He always asks his father to like spider him. So his dad will pretend like he's a spider and my son is the fly got caught in the web, so he will wrap his legs and arms around him. He likes that very secure kind of feeling. So maybe that's your child as well. So give him those hugs, give him those sensory sensation of being secure and loved. Okay, then the third one is quality time. And I've said this already, just go out with your child, connect with them. The fourth one is gifts, right? Then the fifth is acts of service, which we as moms, we do all the time anyway. So yeah, everyone was a lot more relaxed after that connection period. And I think things visibly got better in terms of our relationship. Okay, and another related point with this is that we need unhurried time to connect. A lot of seemingly nothingness or meaningless interactions need to happen before the deeper stuff can happen. A lot of people say that you don't need quantity time, you just need quality time. I find that is a myth, and that's not true, or it's misconception. I think a certain amount of quantity time is needed before we can even achieve quality time. If we don't even meet that certain threshold, right, then it's very hard for that deeper conversations to happen. It needs to be in a relaxed atmosphere with no agenda, and suddenly something pops in the child's mind and then it's like, hey mommy, you know something, you know, it's like kind of conversation that is very organic and it's not scripted or planned, right? And we can't force these opportunities to happen, right? We just got to like stick around long enough to wait for them to happen. Unfortunately, we can't control when they happen. So if you just look at your own schedule, look at your child's schedule, if your child is always very harried and you also are very harried and stressed, right? You're like always in the car driving your child, rushing from this therapy to that tuition to that enrichment class and all that. If you are very stressed, then there's really no room or no space for you and your child to connect, even if you want to in the car, for conversations to happen. And a distracted child needs a lot of time. They just do. They need a lot of time to themselves. They need a lot of time to play with their toys, fiddle with their fidget cubes, play with their yo-yo, walk here and there, up and down, drink water, go toilet, do nothing, right? It looks unproductive, but I believe it's doing something to their minds to help them unwind, especially from school where they have been for a long time, where it's also structured and they're told like what to do minute by minute, that they come back, they need that space, they need that quietness, or they need that freedom to do whatever they want. And I just read a recent interesting article about resilience. A lot of our distracted kids, we say they're very unresilient, we say they're not gritty, and we're very worried about that, right? Because they meet the slightest thing, then they give up. So a lot of the parents come to me and they ask me like, hey, you know, my child always says he wants to give up. What can I do about this? And I recently read this article that says actually the most important thing for these kids is they need time. To build resilient kids, the kids need time. They need time to process. They need time to unwind. They need time to think about what has happened and then move forward. If they don't have that time to process, everything just gets buried underneath. I'm just going for my next activity. At some point, they're like a rubber band being stretched, they're going to break. So our kids need time, they need to process, they need to unwind, they need to maybe come up with a plan. And maybe a lot of them is like, heck it, you know, like this is something I can't solve, so I'll just move on and forget about the issue. That's part of being resilient, right? I mean, that's part of life. Like there are certain problems that they can't solve, and so they just forget it and move on. Yeah, so that links to another problem. Like we always say, our distracted kids, they don't learn anything from the past experiences, but maybe that's how they just cope. That's how their brain copes with all the negativity and all the rejection and all. Anyways. So mistake number 1 is that we are yelling too much at our kids. Mistake number 2 is not connecting with them. Mistake number 3 is us not stepping into the role of a coach. I remember again one of those very, very hard afternoons that I was yelling at my child was crying, and I remember sitting on the floor, I was also crying with him, and I was thinking like, why can't I get a diagnosis so that I can get pills for my kid? Maybe that will solve all my problems. I remember thinking that, and of course, that's still at the back of my mind. And now and again, when things are very rough, then I will think, okay, I'm going to like search for a psychologist or psychiatrist. I'm going to bring my child to see one and get him those ADHD pills. But at the end of the day, pills do not build skills, right? At the end of the day, the medicine will wear off, and we are still faced with this child who has no improvement in his executive functioning if we do not help him build those skills in tandem with his medication in the first place. I'm not saying that don't go and find a psychologist, don't go and get a diagnosis. Maybe at some point for some of us, we'll need to consider that route, but even then, and for the rest of us whose child is not diagnosed, right? Our role as a parent and our role as a coach is still very, very important, because ultimately no one will face our child 24/7, and no one is more invested and no one is more equipped to help our child than us. Because no one's going to like help him make sure he does all these things, the step by step, make sure he fulfills XYZ before he goes to school the next day. The psychologist is not going to do that. They're not going to go to the nitty-gritty stuff with your child. It's always you. It's just us. There's no one else. Basically, there's no one else but us, right? So even if you're a working mom who only sees your child in the evenings and at nights, you can still do a lot. Just think of it in 10-minute blocks. If you are able to work with your child for 10 minutes on a certain skill, that 10 minutes will add up to 70 minutes a week. That's already a lot more than the 60 minutes that your child sees the psychiatrist a month or the psychologist a month, right? Or the educational therapist a week. If we have a specialist and then we use whatever the specialist does with our kid, and then we want to reinforce that habit over the next 6 days or 29 days of the month, then won't the results compound even more? Won't that help our child even more? So what can you do? You can help him build his executive functioning skills by things like ensuring that he packs his bag, contributes in doing chores, plan his afternoon the next day, make a checklist, check off the list, make his own reminders, set goals for himself. Of course, you want to build that relationship, you want to connect. And all these things are psychologists, the therapists, and the tutors can't do. Only we parents are able to do. So the role of a coach is really to walk alongside your child in encouragement. And maybe you've heard of this saying that it's always connection before correction. In order to coach your child, it must be in a context of a loving relationship, of a trusted relationship. Then the coaching will work. Because coaching is very hard, Yeah, you think about it. I was just reading the Daily Bible app. Yeah, the Daily Bible app today was on like iron sharpening iron. And anyway, the gist of it, I was thinking of it in terms of parenting or discipleship, right? And that's exactly what we are expected to do with our child. And it's a very, very hard relationship to have. It's a very hard ask, I would say, because we always have to keep making the child grow, and growing is tough. Growing is not easy. Growing is painful. But we always have to keep pushing our child to the next step. And these kinds of things cannot happen if it's not in a trusted relationship, it's not in a loving relationship, right? So we have to walk alongside our child in encouragement. We need to have the big picture of the levels of competency, what exactly our child needs at the end of the day in order for him to adult and be a functional adult. Determine what our child can do now, what he needs to do, and then what's that gap. So I'm always talking about the gap. What is that gap? What he can do now, what he needs to do, what is that gap? And we need to break this gap into mini steps so that we can help our child reach the next step, the next mini step. Then when he has mastered that mini step, then he goes on to the next mini step, right? So we need to help and prod our child to push him in order to kind of meet that standard or the expectation that we see would help him perform as a functional adult. And we cannot be soft and permissive. We cannot ever be too soft and permissive with our distracted child, because we need them to be functional in 10, 15 years time, or even less. For my case, my son's already 10. I need to get him ready for like army in 8 years time, where he's able to have a lot more control of his executive functioning skills and competency levels and all that. So we can be firm, we can set high expectations, but we can be gentle and encouraging at the same time also. And with that, I've come to the end of my 3 mistakes. Number 1 is yelling at our child. Number 2 is not connecting with our child. Number 3 is not owning that role of a coach for our child. And Freedom Fam is open. We help you become the coach for your child in 3 areas. Number 1 is executive functioning skill. Number 2 is academic skills. And number 3 are soft skills. And I created this membership because I realized that there is a gap. A lot of us have distracted kids, but a lot of our distracted kids are undiagnosed and will not, and it's a good thing, right? And sometimes they will not be diagnosed because they don't meet that threshold or that criteria for getting an ADHD diagnosis, which is a great thing. But the bad thing is then what? There's no support for us. There's nobody else to come in and help us, teach us how to teach our distracted kid, or to find that specialist help. That is very difficult to find, first of all, and it's very, very expensive if we actually manage to find one. And of course, we still are expected to help teach our distracted kids, teach values, build habits, and build character, right? Which is our jobs anyway as parents. So why not? We have to do it anyway. So in the membership, I take these big skills and then break it down into doable, repeatable actions, like a checklist that you can focus on for 1 month. A list of actions that you can take in teaching, guiding, and then letting your child take ownership of the skill. Take it like a playbook or a manual that you can just take and then use it with your child. So a very simple example is, how do I teach my child to do laundry? I break it down into 5 steps. Stuff the clothes into laundry, press this button, close the door, and set your timer for 20 minutes. Take out the wash laundry, put it in the dryer, and then after 1.5 hours, take out the laundry, put it in the basket, and get the family to fold clothes, So these are like steps that we can do every week, that after a while, when he keeps doing these actions, he will eventually be competent, he'll eventually be able to handle the laundry by himself. So that's just an example, right? That's just an example of a simple skill that we can teach our child. And of course, laundry is one skill. Then there are other skills like writing a story, studying, making mind maps, learning spelling on his own, packing his bag, things like that. All the executive functioning skills that we talked about. So yes, you will still have to do the work with your child. It's not a magic pill. It is not a magic stone. You still have to work with your child and put in the work. But at least you have it mapped out for you. So if this is something that you're interested in, if it's something that you think it's helpful for you and your child, check out the link